changes so quickly, it'll toss you all around. This world belongs to darkness, it'll only let you down. Oh, in the morning, let my prayer come to you. Lord, I need you. Father, when you call me.
Hi, welcome to our next segment about getting back to the garden. This is Reverend Tim. I'm Sister Janessa. Hope you're doing good today. What are you going to tell us, Reverend Tim, today about the big three?
Well, I was listening to a song by George Harrison called Blow Away, and had heard the song a lot of times and really liked it. And one of the lines in it was, all I've got to do is to love you. All I've got to be is to be happy. And if you know anything about Harrison, you know he's a very spiritual person and that he had a deep-seated love of God. And some of, like on the song Long, 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 turns out he was talking about God. So I was thinking, well, I wonder if he's talking about God in Blow Away. All I've got to do is to love you. All I've got to do is to love him. And I thought to myself, but that's half of it. The other half, of course, is loving people. You know, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself is the way Christ taught it. And I was thinking about George's line, and it dawned on me that if I focused exclusively, or at the very least, primarily, on loving God, and let my love for God just then be the thing that caused my love of people to flow out of that love of God, then it might work better. I tried it for a couple of weeks. Fantastic change, fantastic difference in my life. And that's one of the things I'm pointing out to you now.
We shared that with a couple friends of ours. They tried it too, and they said they had never felt anything like that before. They had never tried doing something like that. And at first it sounds trite to say, well, we're gonna go around today and we're gonna love God, and then people go, oh, okay, but it really the depth of it doesn't sink in. Let's explain what we are meaning by loving God.
Most of the time when people think of God, they think of the Old Testament God who was jealous, who required that people put him ahead of other gods, therefore he was jealous, and therefore a word that flows right out of jealousy is ego. The Old Testament God had an ego as big as any human being's. So what we're talking about with God is a God without an ego, a God who is, as the author of 1 John put it, a God who is love. God and love then are united, they're one and the same. So with that as the thought, you love God. You are focused then on loving, on serving that idea, that concept of love, that ideal of love. And putting that forth in terms of goodwill, in terms of good deeds, in actions that are not intended to hurt anybody, do no harm. And by focusing on that and not so much on relationships, because when you focus on relationships, when you focus on people, then what happens is my focus becomes, how can I get through the day without offending anybody? How can I get through the day without saying something that somebody's going to take wrong? You can't do that. It's impossible. And no matter how hard you try with people, you're going to be frustrated. You're going to say something that people take wrong. And then you feel like, oh my gosh, I was trying so hard to be loving, and then you wind up being frustrated anyway. So by just kicking all of that to the curb and making the entire focus, I'm going to try to love God, and that means I'm going to try to treat people fair, I'm going to try to do right by people, and let that flow out of the concept of loving God, then the whole frustration factor kind of disappears.
That's right. And the basis that we're talking about, like Reverend Tim said, this is not the God that was seen by primitive people in the 1200, 1700 BC times. This is a new concept of God which came in the New Testament with Jesus. Jesus taught us, what is God like? Well, God is like me. You know, that's what he said. God is like me. If you want to know God, know me. Was Jesus jealous? Was he an egomaniac? Was he anything? Was he strike people dead? No. That's not what God really is. God is the one who created us because he loved us so much. He wanted us to be here and he wanted us with him. He loves us with a depth of love that we can't even conceive of. This is the God we are adoring and we are giving our love to.
The concept of praising God and worshiping God and glorifying God, not everybody finds those things uplifting, but when you have a deep spirituality, you do. And so what we're going to tell you is that if you focus on trying to develop a deeper spirituality that helps you with chanting, with meditation, with praising, with prayer, then your love for God will become easier to attain and maintain. It will be easier to put forth in your day-to-day living. Because in the end, that's what love of God is. It's the application of, in everyday life, finding ways of putting forth that love. It's not 1 hour a week. It's not being kind to the people that it's advantageous to you to be kind to. I had a very funny thing happen recently. I was at a store, and this guy let me cut in line in front of him. And I said, "Thank you very much. That was very kind of you." And he said, "I'm trying to get to heaven." And the idea that maybe he meant I'm a really nice person because I love God and I'm trying to get to heaven. I hope he wasn't really trying to say that if I do a good thing, God will be beholden to me to cause me to go to heaven. Yeah. But understanding that love is not a contractual thing is very important. It is a sacrificial thing, and a good example of that would be the difference between loving of our children, our infant children, really. That's the only people that we humans are very good at really loving. Because as soon as we get married to someone, we say to them, "I love you, but you've got to take out the garbage, you've got to do the yard, you've got to make a certain amount of money, you've got to treat me a certain way." And this is not in opposition to being respected or in opposition to responsible living. But it's saying that when we put all of these contractual things there, and when the person doesn't meet that contract perfectly, and that also means being skinny and
remaining youthful and beautiful, you know. And as soon as you start to get wrinkles and look kind of funny, I'm out of here. You know, I'm obviously being facetious, but that happens.
Getting rid of the contract aspect of love is just so important, that we love people because we do. And we love people because that is what makes us happy. There was a song by the singer-songwriter Dan Fogelberg, and I heard the lyric wrong for many years. It's a song called "To the Morning," and the line in it said, I thought he was saying, true love is not so strange. But he was actually saying, to love is not so strange. And when I first got that lyric right, it suddenly dawned on me that for most of my life I had been miserable because I wanted to be loved, not to love. I wanted to be loved. And the difference between those two things is magnificent. When I focus my attention on being loved, and then you're not loving me the way I want to be loved, you're not giving me what I want, I'm unhappy. I'm irritated at you. If I just love you to love, then that loving actually makes a person happy. It gives that person peace. It gives the person joy to love. And why would people be happy with a little baby? The baby doesn't make them any money. The baby really doesn't love them back. The answer is because for some reason parents are able to love their infant children with a great magnificence. And that causes happiness and joy.
With no conditions on the baby, yes.
Right. I'll love you, little baby, but you better not poop. It's not going to happen, but the joy is there anyway.
Yes, yes. So one thing we wanted to share is before our time runs out is if you have a candle or if you have something beautiful in your house that you just love to look at. Right here we have a wonderful old picture of the crucifixion and something that you can look at and that inspires you to love God. So get in a quiet place where you're not going to be interrupted. Get in a quiet place. Get in a comfortable position. Think about loving. What does love feel like in you? How do you love? What does your mind do when it loves? What do you feel like when you love? And focus on that picture or whatever you have, candle, the flower, whatever, and consciously tell yourself, I am loving this flower. I am loving God. I am loving this beautiful picture. Look at how this inspires me to love. Bring up the fire of that love. Pretty soon you will find that it's engulfing. It's so inspiring that it takes you out of your problems, out of anything you're dealing with right now. It's so wonderful, and when you learn how to do it, then you can do it about any place. You'd be waiting for a train, and you're busy loving God, and it uplifts you, and that is one way of going back to the garden.
I think one of the things that we can understand about this is that as we infuse a love of God into our everyday life, into everything that we do, say, and the actions of loving, it's life-changing, it's transforming, and it provides us with it makes us different. And it makes the people around us different. So,
well, another thing you can do if you like beads, this right here is a Hindu set of beads, actually used by Hindus, used by Hare Krishnas. If you have a rosary, if you have something like that, you can actually use the beads and put your fingers on the bead, say, I love you, God, and then the next one, I love you, God, and the next one, I love you, God, and then you can apply it to other different things. Oh, I have this beautiful rose bush on the side of the yard. Oh, I love those beautiful roses. Oh, I love those beautiful roses. God made those beautiful roses. You see how you can apply it in different ways.
that doesn't work, however, if you treat your neighbor like they're criminals. We have also the responsibility of acting in love and making that love an authentic part of our lives.
But as you said earlier, and this does work, we have done this. When you get used to focusing on God, taking the focus off of yourself and your problems and your negativity or whatever you're having, place the focus on God. You learn how to do it. You become a little bit practiced with it. You're going to find, I think, you're going to automatically be more joyful and be more loving to people, and it's going to be easier to deal with people because you're going to have a joy inside you that you didn't have before.
Well, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you the next segment.
Thanks.
Let these prayers rise up to you. Jesus, I love you.